Alright guys, in today's video we are talking about next generation games, and the reason why we're taking some time to highlight this and talk about it is because it seems as though ever since Microsoft held their first next generation games showcase for the Xbox Series X, a lot of gamers are feeling underwhelmed, and a certain group of gamers are feeling so bad that they now feel maybe we shouldn't be excited or hyped for next generation games because they're just going to end up looking exactly the same as games look now. Not much is going to change. And what's interesting is we have an article that was written up by IGN that basically says this exact thing. In fact, the title of the article is "You May Need to Lower Your Expectations for Next Gen Graphics." Now, Geoff Keighley, for those of you who don't know who he is the host of the Game Awards, the creator as well, and he just announced the Summer Game Fest. He's going to be involved with a lot of the next generation game reveals that are going to be happening in the coming months. And he responded to this on Twitter basically saying, yeah, that's not true. This article's not going to age well. And so I think it's pretty interesting. I want to highlight this. And we're also going to be talking about the price point of these next generation consoles, as we have both Micheal Pachter and Peter Moore kind of weighing in, letting us know how much they expect Microsoft in particular to sell the Xbox Series X compared to what Sony's going to be pricing the PlayStation 5 at. And it may surprise you. We did talk about this on the podcast, but I know that not everybody can tune into the podcast, so I wanted to make sure to highlight it in a separate video. And finally, we're highlighting what another developer has to say here about the teraflop difference with these next generation consoles. And this is actually the developer of the upcoming game Course, which was revealed during the Inside Xbox that just happened. So we're going to talk about that as well. But before we go any further, if you could do me a favor, hit the like button to help the video out and show your support, and hit the subscribe button as well so you don't miss any future content. But it says here, Geoff Keighley, the producer for 2020's Summer Game Fest and the annual Game Awards, is doing what he does best, building hype. Geoff Keighley took to Twitter to respond to an article warning gamers to lower their expectations for next-gen consoles. Keighley's response was to say that the article is not going to age well. Next-gen criticism is climbing due to the recent Xbox Series X focused Inside Xbox event. Expectations for the event were set unintentionally high due to promises of gameplay, next-generation footage, and a near-hour-long runtime. Instead, most reveals featured short trailers that highlighted in-engine recordings rather than gameplay. Most of the games were also from small to medium-sized studios. A vocal minority of gamers made clear their displeasure, and a smaller subset started to say that maybe next-gen consoles wouldn't deliver games all that much more impressive than what's already being shown. Keighley clearly doesn't believe that's true, and given that Geoff Keighley is an insider that's likely seen footage from many of the next-gen titles gamers will be introduced to in the coming months, he is very believable. Folks should keep their expectations for next-gen games as high as they please, but should also be patient. And so I actually went over on his Twitter to see exactly what he had to say. So he highlighted that IGN article that we referenced earlier, basically telling people to lower their expectations for next generation graphics, and he quoted it and said this article will likely not age well. But if you go down a little bit further, he actually responded to what some people were saying to him, basically saying like, look man, you're overselling this, you're overhyping it. One individual said, with all respect, Geoff, I think you need to tread carefully with the beginning of Summer Games Fest. A lot of folks are understandably burned from the continuously underwhelming events the past 6 months, and while I understand a lot of that is out of the developers and publishers' hands. So basically what this person is saying, like, look, Geoff, you might want to chill because gamers have been burned up until this point, and gamers have been getting hyped over and over again just to end up feeling a little bit let down. And he responded by saying, let's talk again soon. So what I believe Geoff Keighley is trying to say here is that he's going to be doing something big soon, or some game publisher is going to be doing something big soon, or multiple game publishers are going to be doing some big things very soon. And it just basically comes off as he's very confident that this person is not going to end up feeling burned, and many gamers are not going to feel burned by what is to come hopefully sooner rather than later. That's what he's hinting at. We have another response here. Geoff Keighley, why do this? From what was shown, were we supposed to be blown away? Not many were. Why post this, though, is my question. And he responds by saying there is much more to the next-gen story. So, yeah, looking at this, to me, it's pretty clear that Geoff Keighley is coming out here and basically trying to let everybody know, look, while we do have to remain patient and it's not all going to happen at one time, he is basically not promising, but saying that we are going to be blown away. We are going to have our expectations met. And to me, maybe this is just my bias here, but I just can't help but think of Sony when he says this stuff. Because the thing about Sony's games, while I know a lot of third-party publishers and Microsoft as well are going to have a lot of really good-looking games to show off, the thing about Sony is when they show off specifically their first-party games, like whether you want to think about the next Horizon game, even if you want to think about the next Spider-Man game or the next God of War game, or even just a new IP in general that's coming from one of Sony's first-party studios, the thing about it is it's going to be developed for just the PlayStation 5 and take full advantage of that. And because of that, it's not going to be held back, and I know I sound like a broken record, but I have to emphasize this to people. This is why PlayStation fans are just so excited. It's not going to be held back by the PlayStation 4, as long as it's not a cross-gen game. It's not going to be held back by the PC, because as far as we know, the games are going to be exclusive to just the PS5 and not built with PC in mind, again, as far as we know. And when you think about that, if there's any publisher that's going to be able to show games that truly blow people's minds, it's going to be Sony's first party. I would say the same thing for Microsoft, but unfortunately for them, they've already made the decision, and I think this is unfortunate, that not a single game coming from their studios is going to fully utilize everything that the Xbox Series X will offer. It can't, because it has to keep in mind that we need to make this game able to run on the Xbox One and PC as well. So because of that, I just feel that when I look at what Geoff Keighley's saying here, not only does my hype levels rise a little bit, because it's like, yeah, he knows what's up. He knows what's going to be shown, for sure, right? And he's saying, look, it's okay to have high expectations. They're going to be met. There's more to the story than, oh, you need to lower your expectations for next-gen graphics. That gets me excited. Certainly gets me excited to see what Sony's studios are going to show, as well as third-party and Microsoft's as well. But moving on from that, talking briefly about what Micheal Pachter and Peter Moore had to say when discussing the price point of the next-gen consoles. It says former Electronic Arts and Xbox executive Peter Moore and Wedbush Securities analyst Micheal Pachter have said that Microsoft is in a position to price the Xbox Series X lower than the PlayStation 5. The duo made their comments during a video chat with Geoff Keighley, in which they discussed the company's next-gen plans and challenges. So essentially, what we have here is both Micheal Pachter. I know a lot of people don't take him seriously, understandably so, but I do take Peter Moore a little bit more seriously. He was a former head of Xbox. I think he was the head of Xbox during the early 360 days. And so basically, I think, they're both coming together here. Well, it's not what I think. This is what they're saying. They're both coming together here, saying that they believe Microsoft is waiting for Sony to, quote, blink first, as in kind of reveal the price of the PlayStation 5 first before Microsoft reveals the price of their console, because they both think that there's a pretty good chance Microsoft may try to undercut the PS5 by selling the Xbox Series X at a significant $100 loss and subsidize it, for at least the first 10 million sold, because everything's going so well for them with their subscriptions, with Game Pass and everything, Xbox Live. They'll be able to make up for it through that and game sales and software sales. They think that Microsoft is going to try to price this thing at $400. Now, I don't think this is the case. I think they're both going to go for $500, both Sony and Microsoft. And I think, if anything, it's more likely Sony would probably try to do less than that, maybe at $450, possibly even $400. Because Sony really won't. Sony knows just how significant that price advantage is. That's not to say that Microsoft doesn't, but when it comes to selling pure hardware units, right, and not worried about anything else, yeah, the price point means a lot. We also know, we've heard that Microsoft is planning to reveal an Xbox Series S model. So when you think of that as well, it then makes you think, would it make much sense for Microsoft to want to sell their the more powerful console at such a loss if they are already going to have the price advantage with a less powerful, cheaper console at maybe $300 or $350. I could see a $400 price point maybe looking a little bit more likely if that's not actually something that's going to happen, but I don't know. It just goes to show, in my opinion, the difference in leadership here, where if Peter Moore was in charge right now, just like he used to be back during the 360 days, I think they would be super aggressive and they would go for that $400 price point. But I think Phil Spencer has proven that while he does want to be competitive to a certain extent, at least that's how he's come off recently. He's come off very confident, like he still wants to try to win and be number one. But at the same time, he's gone on record saying that to him, it's not about the console sold. That's not the only measurement of success. It's more about engagement, subscription numbers, stuff like that. So that tells me that they're not going to try to sell this thing at such a loss. Although there's no doubt when you think about the economic situation right now, if either of these consoles come in at $400, that's going to be a big deal because a lot of people, that $100 difference is a huge difference. So we're going to have to see about that. I don't believe it. I still think both are going to be $500, but I'm going to be interested to see what you guys have to say. And to wrap this video up before it gets much longer, moving on to what the Chorus devs have to say, says the developer behind the recently revealed cross-gen game Chorus has said that there's a lot more to the teraflops debate than mere numbers. Fish Lab's head of core technology, Johannes Coleman, was asked during an interview with Eurogamer where he stood on the topic, and this is what he said. I can't really speak to any number differences, but what I know is we do have the game running, and it looks very promising already. But what we always see with any console generation is we first have to learn how to handle the hardware, how to handle the software, and how to make the best use of it. If you have a difference in teraflops, but then you have an operating system or firmware that doesn't allow you to take advantage of this, then it's not going to be of much use. So there's definitely more to the debate. It definitely depends on how you can make use of the hardware and software. And so I just wanted to highlight this because it is another developer basically saying that, yeah, it's not just about the T-flop number, and the T-flop number alone is not a good representative of really what developers are going to be able to do with their games when developing them for these next-gen consoles. It's a lot more than that. And I think most of us already know this by this point, but this is why when you see people saying like 12 greater than 10.3, like that's not going to matter. I promise you that's not going to matter nearly as much as you want to think it does. Granted, I think both Sony and Microsoft have made it pretty clear that they are offering developers a lot of really awesome, easy-to-use tools to ensure that they can extract as much out of these consoles in a very efficient way as quickly as they possibly can. This is something we've heard developers praise both Sony and Microsoft for, where basically saying that these consoles are extremely easy to develop for, and that's just good in general, right? Like that's what we want to hear. So I just thought that this was worth mentioning at the end here, just to kind of highlight yet another developer who's just saying, look, it's not just about the T-flop number. There's a lot of other things surrounding it. When it comes to taking full advantage of it, it comes down to the tool set, it comes down to the operating system, the firmware, and all these things have to work in unison with one another. And hopefully, Sony and Microsoft are doing what developers are hoping they want, need them to do, I should say, in order for them to take full advantage of these consoles. So that's going to do it for the video, guys. Let me know your thoughts about this down in the comments below. Again, leave the video a like if you enjoyed it or found it informative. Subscribe to the channel if you're new and haven't already. Hit the bell notification icon so you never miss an upload, and feel free to share this video out on top of all that. But until next time, guys, take care.